All right. Hey there. This is terrifying. Um, Probably most of my horrible memories about failures relate to public speaking. But it felt a bit superhuman to get out of that alive, so I guess I'm doing this for that thrill at the end. So if I manage to butcher this, you can find me over wine to tell you the other stories. I'll talk today about vulnerability, what it means for me as an individual and for me as a leader in an organization designer role. Hope. I have no slides. Okay. I'm good. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Adormi, which is a fashion tech company. It's certainly not my mother hoped for me. I started out as an honest engineer. On the other hand, my mom hoped I'll get a job, and honestly, I never thought I'll land an actual job, ever. But let's start with the beginning. I started coding when I was 8-year-old on a shabby computer in the early 90s. And I got quite good at that. I was super curious as a kid. So that meant I was paying attention in classes and not really spending any time home learning. So I quickly became friends with all my teachers and got good grades and was the first in my class, and at the same time completely lacked any discipline or ability to do any planned work. That's interesting for later. I got in probably the best college in Romania because I got a prize at the National Informatics Olympiad in high school. And I was in a pretty small town. I grew up in a small town, and for a long time I thought I'm really good at what I'm doing. And I remember the first time I got to that national, I realized I'm obviously, clearly the stupidest person there. And I realized that most people spend the entire year practicing and working, and I did some in the night before the actual test. I read through a book, The Psychology of Computer Science Contests, that I bought 6 months previous. And that's also how I prepare for conferences, so bear with me. So, that was a pretty hard wall. But then when I got to Bucharest in a real educational environment in the Polytechnic, I realized that nothing in my life prepared me for this. I failed most of my exams. I was unable to spend 20 minutes focusing on reading the material, taking notes. And at the same time, I was super interested about everything the teachers were teaching. I got very passionate about a lot of the topics, like compiler design and operating system design and so on. So I ended up again going to international contests with some of the teachers as mentors. At the same time, I was failing their classes. And because I knew I'd never get a job, I started to do entrepreneurial stuff in my first year of college. I started an e-commerce business out of my dorm. I hired my first team when I was 21 years old in a small software consultancy. And I think that's when reality hit even more. I am just constantly fighting uphill to do the most basic things that most people do naturally. And you know, there is a, who heard about Big Five personality test? All right, it's one of the most science-based psychometric personality assessments. It tests different personality traits. One of these is conscientiousness. So how much can people rely on you to do the things you plan to do? And when I did my first this test for the first time, I am less conscientious than 70% of the people in the world. And then I did another test that was a bit more accurate, and I ranked less conscientious than 95% of the people in the world. And you know, it was nice to see it on the screen, but I actually live that every day. People cannot simply rely on me to pay a bill, to be on time in a meeting, to send an email, to make a deck, to prepare for, to make some homeworks. In my third grade, I think I had 5 consecutive 4s or Fs because I didn't do my homeworks in the same week. Yeah, and you know, this reality about myself was really contrasting what everybody was saying about me. My parents were very proud about my achievements. My teachers were very proud about my achievements. And at the same time, I knew I continuously disappoint people, and I knew that this behavior is associated with very bad moral things like laziness and you know, lack of caring for other people, lack of respect. So a lot of this behavior is largely associated with very negative things. And so it's interesting looking, you know, at all these nice milestones, to also look at every second where I felt like, who does these things? Who behaves like that? I mean, what would really happen if people knew how I really was? Because I was trying to hide it a lot. I was trying to pretend that my dog ate my homework, and I had an emergency meeting, so I couldn't make it on time, and so on. And yeah, that was kind of defining most of my life. A lot of great public success caused by bursts of motivation, overlapping every minute of shame and feeling like a failure. And then I think I went through a phase of maturing a bit and healing and finding some acceptance. I started doing psychotherapy in 2007. I still do it 15 years later. They're not doing a great job, I think. I started to do life coaching when my second daughter was born, which also helped a lot. And what I learned through this healing process is that everything I do well is caused by the same personality traits that produce all my suffering. I wouldn't be able to do problem solving, and I wouldn't be able to be super creative in crisis mode if I was not always in the center of a hurricane in my head. So I am divergent, and I find ways when other people can't, but I cannot seem to be convergent and close things. Yeah.
From your entire speech, my feeling is that you're like this awesome person that can be vulnerable right now towards us, which is not easy. Anyone here present, for sure, you would confirm that it's not easy to be vulnerable on stage. And you are saying that you have failures, and obviously what you are saying to
Yeah.
And that you are here also as a strong being who is capable to also be vulnerable.
Well, I think the accepting ourselves and being open about our faults and failures does not deny the consequences of our actions. When I am, for the 7th time, not being there when I promised for my daughters, that shapes our relationship. When I start a philanthropy project with a partner, that happened in 2010, that she gave her life away for that, and I couldn't deliver on my end, and we had to kill it, that had consequences. So when I say I disappoint people every day, it's not just figure of speech. I do disappoint people every day, and that has consequences. Yeah, I think you are right. I think some of us look in the arena and we look at the fighters and we imagine how glamorous it might be, and we only see some glimpses of excellence that are not representative for how their life feels for them. And I think it's a good segue to the organizational side of things, because I think the essence of vulnerability is not playing a role, not pulling a developer hat when you go into the office, being wholeheartedly yourself 24/7 with the good and the bad. I wouldn't say unapologetically, but still fully assuming it. And I think the opposite of vulnerability is having this idealized professional role that you have to play to respond to expectations that are foreset by your colleagues, your bosses, your society. And I think continuously playing this role and behaving like your true self is kind of off and icky and you don't want to display it, has this difference between what you expect of yourself through the eyes of others and what you actually are, causes a continuous state of anxiety and stress, and I kind of become paralyzed sometimes, not knowing what is expected of me to do versus what I feel like. And I think this constant attempt to play a role that is kind of designed and not living your full self is causing other things to diminish, like your creativity or your spontaneity or problem solving. And I think it doesn't only take a toll on us as people, but it also takes a toll on relationships. Because if I'm a developer in a team and I behave in a certain way to please their expectations, all that anxiety, all that stress, I come to associate it with them as them being the sources of my suffering, because it's for them that I play this role. And this also takes a toll on the relationships and transforms these work relationships into some transactional handover type of things. I have a task, I get the specs, I do it, I deliver it, and you stop having like meaningful connection as you are a bit stuck into that role. And I think besides this, personal impact and organizational impact, I even dare take a more philosophical or ethical angle at vulnerability. I don't know if you're a dictator and kill 1,000 people, you're going to be guilty of genocide. But if you take millions of people and, steal 8 hours of their every day in their prime, that's fine. It's a job. And I think, putting your life on hold to play a role that is not compatible with yourself doesn't leave much left, because you have 8 hours you sleep, 8 hours you play this role, you put your life on hold, you have that life-work balance. It's not, you put life on hold, you start the work, and then you resume life. And then you have some logistic stuff, commute, feed the children, shower, and then a bit later you're dead. So I think if, in contrast, we would be able to live fully, as an expression of ourselves, as our values, of our need to manifest ourselves upon the world, rather than through the role we are designed for in organizations, we might end up actually living the entire life and contributing as a natural expression of ourselves. That's it.